Good morning, everybody. We are here on this beautiful Saturday, which is the first day of spring. And it's a far cry from our weather last week, which was 80 degrees. And then this morning it was in the low 40s. So we're a little chilly, but enjoying the beautiful sun. And I'm here with my dear friend, Slma Shelbayah. We have been friends for over 17 years. And we have been through major ups and downs through life. And I feel honored that Slma is here today to speak with me about a major life-changing event that she went through and that she is willing to share. And this is in hopes of helping other women to feel comfortable in their own skin. And take it from there, Slma.
Well, thank you for having me, Dina. I have been really excited to watch all of your videos on YouTube. They're unique and they bring different perspectives from across the board, different industries, and for all people. And I think it's amazing that you're tapping into people's story to help others. So I'm excited about our conversation.
Thank you.
And we've shared, you really brought it down to 17, 18 years, but in those years, we've shared some incredible memories, difficult ones, and I appreciate you for being there for me throughout.
Always.
So excited to dig in. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so you are from Egypt. Your family, devout Muslims, and you grew up starting at 15 wearing the hijab, wearing the scarf. So tell us how that came about.
So when I was growing up here, I grew up here actually in the States, but I came here at about 10 years old. And I grew up in a household that was, I wouldn't say they were actually religious, but they were more into the culture as it intersected with religion, with Islam. And so that meant that there was a lot of, you should do this because it's right, versus you should do this because of Islam. And I grew up around that, and through my early teen years, I was very involved, like every teenager, into what everyone else does, right? And just living the teen years to the fullest as much as I could in a house that had a lot of restrictions, until my dad realized, okay, this is getting out of hand with regards to the culture itself. Like, I can't go out and be with guys or even female friends. For extended periods of time. I couldn't really talk to the opposite gender on the phone or date, especially date. And I think for my father, he was trying to be protective of me and the culture. And so for him, he realized, we've got to do something about this, because Slma is starting to, be into guys as a typical teenage girl, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's when he told me that I needed to wear the hijab, and that was a deal breaker for him. Like, I had to wear it or I couldn't go out. Mm-hmm. And I love my father. He's an incredible man. I mean, he's one of my heroes for sure, because he stood by what he felt was right. And so now I look at it that way. And I wanted to please him, and I put it on, but not only did I put it on to please him, I wanted to dig in deeper for myself and learn about what it stood for. So I took it upon myself to do the research and to start studying Islam and to start studying the purpose of the hijab. And I fell in love with it. I embraced it. I made it part of my identity in the way that I dressed, in the way that I talked about it. And I ended up being truly like an advocate for women's rights to wear hijab, Muslim women. And I would go and speak at synagogues and churches and schools and about what the hijab stood for. And I would say until this day, I have true admiration and respect for what it symbolizes and for all women who choose to wear it. And it was a beautiful time in my life when I did wear it.
And you always look gorgeous. The way you styled it, and just the colors, and just how you had gorgeous clothes.
I loved it. I think for me, hijab was a journey. It went from, I have to do this thing. I have to partake into this ritual, if you will, of or this part of the culture. as a Muslim woman. And then it evolved into, well, what can I do with this? I can educate others about it. And I did that for many years. And then it went from there to, well, what can I do to be a voice for women who wear it? And part of my career moving, into the journalism world, I was the first hijabi journalist to be featured on CNN.com in terms of profiles, journalist profiles. And until this day, still up. It's there, and with hijab. And it wasn't a matter of making a statement. It was a representation. And I think that meant a lot to other people who are underrepresented, underserved, to have someone be their face in the media. And so for a long time, that evolved into my identity, a part of my identity. And then from there, it evolved into like a fashion statement, a social statement, a political statement. And it's been a journey, and I've appreciated every part of it, regardless of how challenging it was to go from wearing it to not wearing it.
So what began the journey to, discover that this was not you anymore?
I had a major experience, a conflict that shook my identity as a whole, which included the hijab. I was 27 years old at the peak of my, I would say, not at the peak, but at the start of the peak of my career and my education. I was starting my PhD, and my PhD was actually focused on Arab Muslim identities in the diaspora, as it related to the Arab Spring, the revolutions that were taking place across the Middle East. And a lot of that had to do with women representation and Muslim women representation, and how they identified with the Arab world and what that meant to them, and how they felt like they had to represent that, and so forth. So when I started the PhD, that was going to be the dissertation. And it was very unfortunate because I was excited. I was actually also teaching at the same university. I was teaching Arabic, and I had done my undergrad and my master's at the same university. I was like building, my portfolio, if you will, in the education, journalism sphere, industries. And unfortunately, I had a major incident occur where a professor made some serious comments in public, in front of a lot of people, on numerous occasions about my hijab. And they were quite bold and complex, and literally just identified the wearing of the hijab to terrorism and bombs, and asking if I carried a bomb under my scarf. And I have a pretty tough skin. I always had tough skin, so I shook it off. But because it continued, it became an incident. It became something that needed to be confronted. And I was faced with the situation of, for the first time in my life, someone was challenging me, not a random person, but someone within the work that I'm doing. This is a professor of mine at the university where I was also teaching. So not only was she my professor, she was a colleague. I was an adjunct professor there too. And it challenged me and shook what I believed in, and I started to think about it. At that time, I didn't think about it. At that time, I was just sad, hurt, trying to figure out what to do next, trying to prevent it, trying to move on. That scenario took about 2 to 3 years to get resolved. And in the span of those 2 to 3 years, I was going through what I called, at that time, a midlife crisis. Even though I was only 27, or 20, actually I was only 25, and when it ended I was about 27, 28. So as you can imagine, 25 is so young, but for me, I was already married, I had kids, I had finished my master's, I was working, life was moving so fast, and I've always been moving so fast. This was a chance for me to actually slow down and take in. Unfortunately, it was with that incident, but I look at it as an opportunity for me to think back and say, what am I really doing? Am I really happy with the way that I'm living? Why did I really wear the hijab? What does the hijab mean to me now? This was prior to my time at CNN, when it happened, the incident. And by the time I started thinking through it, I had made my way at CNN, and I was representing this identity for those who didn't have a voice, right? This hijabi woman. So I just started questioning it. I started writing about it, and I realized that it wasn't a choice that I made to put it on. Even though it was a choice to keep it on, I never really had a choice to decide whether or not I wanted to wear it. So I wanted that choice again. I wanted to take that choice back. And the only way that I was going to be able to do that is to try it out. Like here I've lost that at 15, and so I'm 27, and I'm just thinking back to the choice that I didn't have. So I wanted to choose, and that was when I tested, taking it off, like part-time, wearing it, and it was probably one of the most difficult decisions I had to make. It took me about 2 years to fully decide what I wanted to do, and that could change. Yeah. And I think that is the takeaway, is that we are not stuck in any choices that we make. We have to be willing to, of course, deal with whatever consequences that come with them. But I think it's really critical to feel and to know that you can evolve, and you can change your mind, and you can, decide differently again. So,
and it's okay.
And it's okay.
Because like you said, we're forever, growing. And as we go through life experiences, our opinions change about how we should be.
Yep.
So I think that I watched you go through that, and I always thought you were brave, because I know that it wasn't an easy decision to go against what your father wanted you to do.
It was very tough, and I think, oddly enough, the toughest part of it all was I didn't want to disappoint, not only, really it wasn't my father at the time, I didn't want to disappoint him either, but I didn't want to disappoint those that I was representing. Because now my name was out there, because I was involved in the community, the Muslim community, and just in general the community in Georgia, and the work that I did. And because now here I'm this journalist representing a hijabi woman, I was writing a lot of articles about my niche area, the Middle East, Muslims, etc. And the way that I actually announced that was through an article that I was writing. And that was therapeutic for me, but I also know that it was therapeutic for many other people who were going through it. I didn't want to disappoint people. I didn't want to let them down. But my daughter, my daughter at the time, she was much younger. I have 2 daughters, and they were much younger. But I remember her seeing me go through that, and I felt like I need her to feel empowered too. I need her to feel like she will always have choices. And I remember her saying to me, "Mom, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing the hijab or not. All that matters is that you're a good person." And this is just a little girl, but that's what it meant for her. And that's what it should mean, honestly, for everyone. At the end of the day, it's not what we wear. I mean, it does symbolize something, but it's very personal. And I think it took me a long time to own what I know is mine, and it was that choice. And we all deserve choices. I mentioned, I have a lot of respect for hijab, but I have a lot of respect for women who should choose to wear it or not wear it. And that's the most important part.
Yes. Well, thank you, Slma.
You're welcome, Dina. This has been great.
And if you would also share your article.
Yeah. So,
I would love to post that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I could share that. And if you Google the name as well, it'll pop up. And the interesting part is I ended up writing an article called "Removing Hijab, Finding Myself." And this was prior to the Trump elections, which I covered at CNN. And there was a lot of incidents that occurred with Muslim women wearing hijab in the U.S. after. And I was kind of in the transition. I was wearing it part-time, taking it off part-time. And I ended up writing another article called "Wearing Hijab in Trump's America." So it was great, because I think it provides that balance. There needs to be justice and equality across the board. People should have access to choices, either or, but they shouldn't be treated based on the choices they made. So I'll share those with you, and you can share it with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys, for listening.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye.